Not everybody has the ability to focus on the game for 10 hours a day, but throwing it up on a second monitor and AFKing while you get some work done is a great way to make some passive GP or gain some XP. And with that in mind, welcome to AFKing 9 to 5. Today we'll be making some good money, like actual good money. Are you burnt out of killing Vorkath every night, just trying to make enough for that twisted bow? Or have you just got that bow and need to rebuild your bank? Well, look no further, because today's episode is just for you. Today we'll be venturing into the catacombs of Karen to kill some brutal black dragons. Killing these fellas requires level 77 Slayer, at least level 37 Prayer, and a pretty high range level. Getting there for the first time, you'll have to enter the catacombs through the statue, but on your way out for the first time, you can climb up this rope to unlock a hole that you can later climb down in LokiFM. For today's gear, I'll be using a classic T-bow rebuild setup, but if you don't have this exact gear, don't worry, you can still work with a budget setup, and I've got some estimations for how much you should make. On the low end, you're looking at a strong 860k per hour, and at the high end, a whopping 1.5 million GP per hour. These numbers are before calculating in supplies, but don't worry, those are not that expensive. My gear will be sitting somewhere in the middle, so I'm expecting to make about 1 to 1.1 mil every hour today. I'll be completely honest, I tried one trip last night so I could figure out what supplies I should bring, and my inventory setup ended up being 1 Divine Ranging Potion, 1 Prayer Pot, 2 food in case I got 2 AFK and the dragon starts mealeing me, and 1 extended super anti-fire potion. The timing of the trip also worked out perfectly for me to only bring 1 prayer potion, and honestly, in my test trip, I didn't even use a single sip. This is mainly because I didn't use any offensive range prayers like Rigor or Augury, and this made my kills slightly slower, but more AFK. And with this forbidden knowledge, you might still be wondering how I could camp Protect from Mage for a full trip without any prayer pots, and well, the solution is the Bone Crusher. This might not be for everybody because Dragon Bones are 2k per kill, so I technically burned 2,000 coins every kill, but I gained 4 prayer points. This made my trips longer and let me gather more regular loot. So, I guess all that's left is to get to it. I'll see you guys in 8 hours.
Like money.
So let me bank one last time and break down how my day went. First, let's start with the experience. This one probably won't matter much to you since we're here to make GP, but for 8 hours of killing these dragons, I got 192,000 HP XP, 576k range XP, and almost 30,000 prayer experience. Not a bad day of making money. Loot-wise, we did really well. I picked up every single drop, and in the day, I killed 409 of these dragons. That's about 51 per hour. My total loot was 8.4 mil, and my average loot without bones was 20.6k per dragon, which is almost exactly to what the math tells us it should be. Another great thing about killing these dragons is that they do drop totem pieces at a rate of 1 in 185. So our loot was on expected value, and we were on drop rate for these pieces, getting 2 today. I do think it might be fun in the future to try out some totem farming methods since we now have the Venator bow. So there might be a few more monsters that seem a little bit more viable to farm now. If that's something you'd want to see in a future episode, be sure to let me know in the comments. And while we're still talking about loot, I got incredibly lucky. I actually got the Visage during my day here. This drops at a rate of 1 in 10,000, so you should only expect to get one every 24.4 days, so do not count on that extra 2 mil for your price check. And to be completely honest, I am technically dry for one of these since I've killed 8,000-ish mithril dragons and at least 5,000 more across Rune and Adamant, so I'm happy to get that one crossed off the collection log. So for me personally, my final loot came out to 10.8 mil for the day, but I'll be using my earlier number of 8.4. When we talk about money making, we also need to talk about the supplies, because they do cut into that profit at the end of the day. During my 8 hours here, I used 1,500 Amethyst arrows, so that is minus 316k. Potion-wise, I definitely used more dosages of Divine Ranging than I did anti-fires, but to make this super easy, let's just say that I used 20 of each. So minus 82k for the range pots and minus 143k of the anti-fires. And finally, the food. Every trip I brought 2 sharks, and honestly, I only ate them because I needed inventory space. I think there was only 1 or 2 times where I had to eat them because the dragon was meleeing me. But since I did eat them for space every trip, across 51 trips, I used 102 sharks, and that is minus another 52k. My teleports here were free since I'm a sweaty nerd with 99 construction, so our final profit comes out to 7.8 million total, or 975k per hour, which is very, very good. My AFK time here was also pretty good, and I actually got a fair bit of work done today. My AFK times were about 1 minute and 15 seconds, with my active time being just me looting and then moving if the dragon was within melee range. So this was maybe 5 seconds every minute or so. And on top of that, of course I had to bank and resupply, so let me just show you on the screen an example of how long that would take. Surely by the time I'm done saying this, I've probably already done it and have returned to the Brutal Black Dragons. And that should be everything you need to know about Brutal Black Dragons. Today I want to tackle some more PVM activities that can make you some really good money while you work. So let's talk about Rune and Adamant Dragons. Right off the bat, let me say that I know metal dragons can be the bane of your existence if you're getting them as slayer tasks early on, but as you progress into the later combat levels, these can become incredible money for minimal effort. The only real downside is that you do need some pretty high combat levels to take these on to make them both AFK and profitable. Feel free to try them at whatever level you're at, but for the best rates, I'm really going to recommend your base 90s in whatever combat style you choose to use. To do these two, you'll also need the completion of Dragon Slayer 2 to unlock the Lithgren Vault, which can be accessed super easily by using a dig site pendant. Once you've teleported there, you just climb down the stairs to the north and enter the large door, and you're right there. For my day, I'll be using the mounted pendant in my POH. If you don't want to use the fastest method for whatever reason, or you still need to unlock the teleport, to get there, you can go to the dig site, take the boat to Fossil Island, run to this spot in the northwestern corner, take the boat to Lithgren, climb up the stairs, climb down the trapdoor, go down the stairs, climb down the second set of stairs, enter the large door, run all the way to the north, and go slightly east to arrive at the strange device, which you can use your dig site amulet on to unlock the teleport. And now that we know what stats we should have, the requirements to get there, and even how to get there, let's talk about gear. Gear for these two monsters is very identical. For Rune Dragons, I'm using full Justiciar, a Dragon Hunter Lance, a Berserker Ring imbued because I don't have an Ultor Ring. I'm using the Dragon Bone Necklace here so that I can get a token amount of prayer XP, as well as not having to pick up the bones and just getting more regular loot instead. For the cape slot, just use your best in slot. A Fire Cape or Mythical Cape works really good here. It doesn't really matter that much. A Blessing for extra prayer bonus, the Dragon Fire Shield for protection from Dragon Fire, Insulated Boots for protection against the lightning attack, and these are mandatory. If you don't wear these boots, you're going to take a lot of damage and it's not really AFK. And I also chose to use Barrow's Gloves over Ferocious Gloves just for the slight defense bonus. My inventory here is a Divine Super Combat, an Extended Super Anti-Fire, but honestly, you can just use a regular Extended Anti-Fire. I always forget this, and I refuse to buy them for whatever reason. I'm also bringing 3 prayer pots and a teleport to my POH, with the rest of my inventory just filled with food. In the second half of the day, I'll be doing Adamant Dragons, and I'll be using almost the exact same setup. I'll just be flipping the boots for Primordials, and I'll also be bringing an Antidote ++ for 10 minutes of poison protection. I didn't even know this was something I needed for Adamant Dragons until today. For this video, I'll be doing Rune Dragons from 9 AM till 1 PM, so 4 hours. Then I'll switch to Adamant Dragons to finish out the day, so let's get started. Not a bad start to the day if I'm being honest. Rune Dragons is an awesome AFK moneymaker. I knew that going in, but the numbers really just solidify it. It's hard to kind of quantify the AFK time because you do need to pay attention to anything where you can die. I died twice, so I lost 200k of my profit, but I won't include that in here just so we have a clean number. In 4 hours, I used 10 Divine Super Combats or 40 doses. I used 9 Anti-Fires or 34 doses. I used 33 Prayer Pots or 132 doses. I ate 430 Mana Rays days, which comes out to a supply cost of about 1 million GP. In my 4 hours, I got 172 kills, or about 43 per hour. The loot came out to 6.15 mil. That is a total of 5.15 mil profit, or about 1.28 mil per hour. That is very good for an AFK activity, like very, very good. The XP was okay, kind of just standard for any PVM AFK activity. But if you did this for a full workday, you'd make 10.28 million GP. And if you did it for a full work week, you'd make 51.2 mil, which is pretty damn good if you ask me. But I do need to finish out the rest of the day, so let's head to the Adamant Dragons just across the hallway. I know these are probably not going to be as AFK and will also probably be a lot less money, but I still need the metal slice for the collection log, so let's hope I get lucky. Okay, that was really not as AFK as Rune Dragons, but I did get lucky pulling a pair of dragon limbs. Those are a 1 in 1000 drop that should take about 16 to 20 hours, so I did get pretty lucky, so I won't include them in the final price check. Adamant Dragons kind of suck. The AFK time was probably like anywhere between 10 to 30 seconds. I feel like I took a lot more damage here than I did at Rune Dragons, and it's mainly because of the acid special attack. This thing just constantly hits like 7s, so you have to eat more often, and it's overall just not as enjoyable as Rune Dragons. But with that said, in 4 hours, I used 40 doses of Divine Super Combat, 37 doses of Anti-Fire, 21 doses of Antidote++. I used 30 Prayer Pots or 120 doses, 410 mana rays, and this comes out to a cost of about 1 million GP. I also got 226 kills, which is about 56 per hour. My total profit was 5.39 mil or 3.78 mil without the dragon limbs. So my total profit came out to be 4 mil with the limbs or 2.78 mil without. And for this, we'll be using the without price, so I was making about 700k per hour, meaning a full day would be 5.6 mil in profit, or 28 mil if you did this 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. The XP at both monsters was very consistent, they're pretty much almost the exact same, but overall, Rune Dragons are better GP and more AFK. My recommendation is to skip the Adamant Dragons unless you really want that collection log slot. This video is dumb. This is the dumbest idea I've ever had. Today I'll be detailing the AFK Sarachnis method. This method was first popularized by low soul gamers, and then later on by a friend. This method mainly works because of how defensive Justiciar is, but adding in the additional defense of the Din's Bulwark or even the Ellie, and you've got yourself a pretty solid method. But one item makes this an actual AFK grind, the Amulet of Blood Fury. If you've never used this thing before, let me tell you, it is incredible, although quite expensive, costing about 550 GP per attack. This item has a passive leech life effect that will heal you roughly 6% of the damage you deal. Sarachnis has 400 HP, meaning on average you should heal about 24 HP per kill. Hopefully this is adding up and you see the power that this has. But before we get into this video too much, I need to thank today's sponsor, the like and subscribe button. Please consider pressing them. Thank you. First, let's talk about the requirements for this method. These are the base requirements, but obviously, as with any PVM activity, higher stats are just better. You'll need 75 defense to equip full Justiciar, as well as 75 attack to equip the Din's Bulwark. If you have the money, 75 prayer is needed to equip the Ellie, and 80 attack to wield the Inquisitor's Mace. I tried both of these setups, and the Ellie Mace combo was about 3 extra kills per hour and slightly more AFK. But my friend who lent me these items needed them back, so I only did about 1/3 of my total kills using the expensive setup. But with that in mind, here was my final setup, the one I did most of my kills with. Full Justiciar, Din's Bulwark, Amulet of Blood Fury, Guardian Boots for extra defense, Ring of Suffering for extra defense with the recoil effect turned off, Infernal Cape, but a Fire Cape would work just fine, Radha's Blessing for the prayer bonus, and Barrow's Gloves. I picked Barrow's Gloves over Ferocious Gloves, again, just for the defense bonus. For my inventory, the math sort of looked like this. On average, I was using about 15 anglers per trip, but I always brought 16. I almost always used all 8 of the prayer pots I was bringing. I very consistently, almost every single trip with the exception of 1 or 2, used 1.5 doses of Divine Super Combat, but I always brought 2 full ones just in case. I brought a construction cape to get to and from the boss, as well as banking at Castle Wars. But obviously this can be replaced by a house tab or whatever method you want to use for banking. And I also brought the Wilderness Sword 4 because it has a 100% success rate to slash a web. But of course, you could just bring a knife. You don't really need the sword here. The funny thing about this grind is that I had a little piece of paper beside me. I was writing down how many anglers, how many prayer pots, and how many super divine combats I was using per trip. But maybe the more interesting thing was I was writing down how many trips I did in 8 hours, as well as how long each trip was. My longest trip was 38 minutes, which is pretty damn good, especially for an AFK activity. But my shortest one was only 23 minutes. Kinda crazy how RNG works. When I averaged out my times, my average trip was just under 31 minutes. And this means I completed 16 trips to the spider in 1 day of AFK. I do think I trolled a little bit here. I was testing on multiple days if it was better to use Protect from Melee or Protect from Magic. I do think it's more ideal to use Protect from Magic just because of how low your magic defense is, but I eventually chose to use Protect from Melee. After the fact, I think this was a bad decision, but let me at least try to explain my reasoning. Sarachnis is an interesting boss. It is designed for mid-levels, so no damage you take is crazy, especially in this defensive gear. The spider attacks you in 2 different ways. If you're standing within melee distance, it will obviously melee you. But every 4 attacks, she will shoot a web at you, locking you in place while ranging you from a distance until you get unstuck. Becoming unstuck will happen automatically even if you're AFK, so just use auto retaliate. But so far we have 2 attacks, 1 melee and 1 range. You can block both of these 100% if you're changing prayers, but we're AFK, so obviously we're not doing that. Sarachnis also spawns 2 minions, 1 mage and 1 melee. The first set spawns at 66% of her health and the second set at 33%. With auto retaliate, you're quite likely to automatically target and kill these minions, and this is very helpful for avoiding damage, but in a worst case scenario, you could be in melee range of the boss, getting hit by 3 melee attacks, 2 from the minion and 1 from the boss, as well as getting hit by only 2 magic attacks. This is why I chose Protect for Melee, but if you do this yourself, I think you should use Protect for Magic. Again, just because your magic defense is so low. I don't know why I did this. It was kind of dumb. And that's pretty much an entire kill. You just repeat this over and over and over again. So let's talk about some numbers and my thoughts on the grind. With the bulwark setup, I was averaging about 20 kills an hour. The pet is 1 in 3,000, effectively making this a 150-hour grind, or about 19 full days of AFK. But how viable was this to AFK while working? Well, my trips were about 31 minutes and I was clicking about 50 times per trip, making this about 100 clicks per hour or 1.6 clicks per minute. This math doesn't exactly work because most of the time I would complete a kill completely AFK in about 2.5 minutes. And then I would click on my prayer pot 2 or 3 times as well as an anglerfish. So it was a small burst of 5 clicks in about 5 seconds, and this really throws off the math of average clicks per minute. I will say, if you work a job that you can't glance over and click the game client, if you get unlucky and run low on prayer or HP during a kill, which by the way did happen quite a few times, this is more likely an AFK activity you should do on a chill day where you're not working. And even now, you might still be asking, why would you even want to do this? In all honesty, it's not great GP. I did this entirely so I could get a pet, and well, we know how that ends. So let me break down the cost per day and the profit to see if I actually made at least some money. In 178 kills for the day, I made 4.75 mil before supplies and Blood Fury charges. My Blood Fury started the day at 9,592 charges and ended at 4,568. This is 5,024 charges for the entire day. So we'll make this very easy and say I used about half of the charges in 1 day. A Blood Shard currently costs 5.7 mil, so half is 2.85 mil. This means our profit already went from 4.75 mil to 1.9 mil. In a day, I used 24 Divine Super Combats, 240 Anglerfish, and 128 Prayer Pots. So minus another 1.96 mil. I lost money. And this was a pretty normal day, even with 2 cudgels. My kills came out to be about 26.6k on average, and the math says an average Sarachnis kill should be about 27k, so almost bang on. So I lost money, didn't get a pet, and I died a lot. When I was AFKing, really focused on my work, it really pissed me off when I died.
Dying on my hardcore Iron Man. Completed.
I be working too much.
I think I died about 10 times during all my KC here, so minus another 3.3 mil from that. And to clarify, this is not 10 times in one day. This is about 10 times in over 3,000 KC. So to stay alive and make this grind possible, there were times I had to slack incredibly hard while working. And for what? Well, mainly elite clues. With hard and elite clues from this boss, you actually make a little bit of money doing this method, if you do the clues when you get them. But no, it's not recording! Oh my god, I actually got it. I really didn't think I was gonna get it today. Let's go, that's so sick. Yep, you think I just quit? Hell no. Sarachnis pet at 3,686 KC, and the grind was worth it. Going into this, I knew I was gonna lose some money, but it was all for the pet. I completed the boss. I also really wanted to do elite clues, since you get a unique reward for completing 200 of them, which I still haven't finished, but you know, I got much closer, so that's good. But that was AFKing Sarachnis 9 to 5. I hope you enjoyed the video. A lot of time went into making this, and I would appreciate you liking and subscribing if you'd want to see more videos like this in the future. Today, we're going to be exploring the Giant's Den. This little cave to the west of Shazian holds all three types of giant: hill giants, moss giants, and fire giants. In this video, I'll be AFKing all three of them for one day each to see which is the best for getting totem pieces. Unfortunately, I know already that we're not going to make any money. In fact, we're probably going to lose a lot of money every day. The entire reason for this is to hunt totem pieces using a cannon to make it AFK. These totem pieces can be combined to make a dark totem. This totem will let us fight Skatizo to get some clues, but also to hunt the pet. I thought this would be an interesting episode since you can't normally cannon in the catacombs. This is a great AFK option, although there might be some other ones that are more profitable and still AFK, but we can always explore those in another video. For day one, I'll be starting with hill giants. I would guess these will probably be the best option for totem pieces, but it's going to probably cost the most since they go down so quickly. For my gear today, I'll be using my best melee gear, but I also want to use the Bone Crusher necklace here for the plus 12 prayer bonus it gives, the prayer XP, as well as the prayer restoral effect. If you've never heard of this item, it's a combination of 3 different items in the game. The Dragon Bone necklace, which is a 1 in 1000 drop from Vorkath. This necklace has the effect that it restores prayer if equipped. By combining it with the Bone Crusher and the Hydra's tail, you can get prayer XP as well as this restoration effect. You will only get 50% of the normal XP if you've only completed the Mauritania Hard Diary, but you will get 100% if you've completed the Elite tier. I also did test if just the regular Bone Crusher would give you the prayer restoration effect, since technically this is in the catacombs, hence why we can get totem pieces. And to my surprise, it actually does. So if you don't have the Bone Crusher necklace, this thing would still work for you, and you would get 2 prayer points for every giant killed. But to be honest, for hill giants, I don't think they'll do enough damage to warrant me using Protect for melee. So I'll just be turning Piety on and then turning it back on if I run out of prayer. So with all that babble out of the way, let's get into farming some totem pieces. This was much better than I thought it was going to be. In my day of killing hill giants, I killed 4,185, or about 523 per hour. Totem pieces are 1 in 465, and I only got 7 in 8 hours. With this drop rate, I would expect to get 9 for the day, which is 3 full totems, but that's just the way RNG goes sometimes. Another thing in this video that I wanted to point out is that all of these giants drop long bones at a rate of 1 in 400. And if you didn't know, you can trade in long bones to Barlak in Dorgish Khan. Each bone will grant you 4,500 construction XP as well as 1,000 coins. So I guess this is one of the only construction AFK methods in the game. But during the day, I got 12 long bones. But with a similar KC to me, you would only expect to get 10. So I got unlucky on the totems and lucky on the long bones. It is what it is. But that's 45,000 construction XP just for cannoning some hill giants. In my day, I used 8,552 cannonballs, so about 1,069 per hour. That can be quite pricey. That is a total of 1.3 million GP spent for the day. I'll loop back to GP at the end of the video, so just keep this number in mind for now. Here is my loot from the entire day, but to be completely honest, I didn't pick up anything. I was really just collecting totem pieces, giant keys, and ancient shards. Giant keys are 1 in 128, so this is also not a bad idea if you want to fight Obor in the future to try to get the Hill Giant Club for the collection log, or just make a little bit of GP back as each Obor kill is roughly 18k in profit. As for AFK time, this place is awesome. I had no problems actually getting work done because all I had to do was click on the cannon every once in a while. I took almost no damage throughout the day, and any damage that I did take would just regen over time. As with all of these videos, I wanted to show you my XP gain for the day, but you know, RuneLite had to crash at the 6-hour mark, so I've only got 2 hours to show you here, but I'll include the math for the final numbers at the end of the video. But after all of that, I'm feeling pretty confident that Moss Giants might compete with Hill Giants, so I'll see you shortly for day 2. After a full night's rest, I'm sat here with my coffee, ready to kill some Moss Giants. I'm gonna guess that I'll get about half the amount of kills today, but I'm also hoping I use half the cannonballs. Today I'll be using the exact same gear setup, but I will be using Protect from Melee instead of Piety. My guess is that the Bone Crusher necklace will sustain my prayer, so I won't really need a prayer pot, but if I do run out, I don't think the damage will be enough before I restore enough prayer points. Okay, to be honest, not a bad day. In my day, I killed 2,660 Moss Giants, or about 332 per hour. From the Moss Giants, totem pieces are 1 in 440, and I actually got 7 in 8 hours. The exact same amount I got from Hill Giants, but you would expect to only get 5 with this kill count. So, I got a bit lucky today. Longbones are again 1 in 400, as they are from all giants, and I actually got lucky again, getting 7, but you would only expect to get 6 in the same kill count. Cannonball wise, I use way less cannonballs. Today I only used 4,613 cannonballs, or about 576 per hour. This comes out to a total cost of about 705k, so not too bad. But here is my full loot from the entire day. This time I picked up a handful of seeds, if I noticed I got the drop of course, as well as just collecting the totem pieces, mossy keys, and ancient shards. Mossy keys are 1 in 150, so on average with the same kill count you would get about 17 per day, which again is very good for cutting into our GP loss since Bryo has an average drop of about 75k. This is pushed up a bit because the essence is quite valuable, but that means long term we would make an extra 1.2 mil every day, making this actually pretty profitable. But even with that huge bump from the mossy keys aside, I actually made money today just by picking up the seeds. I profited a whopping 70k GP for the day. To be honest, compared to Hill Giants, that is really good. And another bonus is that I actually got to track my XP for the full 8 hours, and it was alright. Nothing to go crazy about, but you can never complain about the free XP while working on something else. I gained 172,000 range XP, 302k defense XP, you could translate this to attack or strength. I also got 100,000 HP XP and 40,000 prayer XP, which is not bad at all for an AFK day. But now we're 2 out of 3 giants down, and I'm honestly not expecting much from the fire giants. I'll see you in about a second, and we'll be ready to get those done as well. And here we are, our last day in the Giant's Den. For now at least. I might come back in the future. Today's gear will be a little bit different. I'll actually be using a prayer setup as I don't think the Bone Crusher necklace will sustain my prayer, and I'm also going to bring 10 prayer pots just in case. So let's get into it. Well, that was a interesting day. It was awful, and I would not recommend it. Today I killed 1,477 fire giants, or about 184 per hour. There are 2 different levels of fire giant here, which means that they have 2 different drop rates for totem pieces. On average, they come out to be about 1 in 360 per kill. In 8 hours, I got 2 pieces. It was awful. On average, with the same kill count, you would expect 4 pieces, but that's just how RNG goes. I also did a little bit of looting today. I was picking up rune arrows if I noticed them, as well as alching rune scimitars and the fire battle staves just to get some money back on the cannonballs. But just like the other giants, I looted 5 longbones for 22,500 construction XP, and I also got a curve bone apparently. But I was too AFK and didn't pick it up, unfortunately. The combat XP for these was actually pretty good. I gained almost 500,000 defense XP, 163k HP XP, 200k range XP, 23k prayer XP, and a humble 1.6k magic XP from alching my loot. Cannonball wise, I used 8,120 or 1,015 per hour for a total cost of 1.2 mil for the day. God, I hate fire giants and I would not recommend them. If you really want to do this yourself because you're hunting the Skatizo pet or you want to do some hard or elite clues, the best option is clearly hill giants. But if you want to mitigate your GP loss, moss giants are really not that bad. But that is not the end of this video. We need to use our 5 totems and see if we can get the Skatizo pet or at least make some of our money back from the drops and the clues. Skatizo drops hard clues 100% of the time, and there's also a 1 in 5 chance for an elite clue, so hopefully I can get at least 1 elite during this as well. Nothing. Nothing. Nothing again. Nothing again. And that is my last totem. Will we get anything for the road? Probably not, but we'll see. Nothing. Yeah, kind of weak. Hopefully the clue rewards are good though. Okay, we got 5 hard clues from Skatizo, so let's see what we get. Hopefully something good. I gotta make some money back. Nothing. I have that already, but still nothing. 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 And more nothing. Well, that was rough, but at least we got some KC, I guess. Overall, I spent 3.2 million GP on cannonballs in 3 days, but I made back 770k from the moss giants, 320k from the fire giants, 867k from Skatizo, and 348k from the clues. This comes out to a total loss of only 900k in my hunt for the Skatizo pet. Over the course of 3 days, I also gained roughly 1 million defense XP, but again, you could translate this to strength or attack, 575k range XP, 333k HP XP. Surprisingly, I also got 131k prayer XP, and a very shocking 94,000 construction XP completely AFK. And that was my trip into the Giant's Den. In today's episode, we're stepping away from the fishing in the PVM, and we're checking out some mining. Today I'll be mining Amethyst ores for 8 hours. I'm pretty sure this is very good money, but the XP is pretty bad. Amethyst is a really good AFK activity, but it does have a very high requirement of level 92 mining. You could technically do this at 89 by using the Dragon Pickaxe spec, but it's probably not worth trying to maintain that boost. There aren't a ton of good mining options for AFK activities. Your only other one is really Motherlode Mine, so maybe we'll try that in another video, but for now, let's talk about Amethyst. There are currently 2 locations in the entire game that you can mine Amethyst ores, and they're actually both right next to each other. You have the main mine that can be accessed by anyone. This place is very commonly filled with bots and just regular players, so there's a ton of competition for these ores. The second mine is just a little bit to the left. To get access to this mine, you need to have completed the Elite Falador Achievement Diary. You do need some pretty high stats for this. I'll show you them on screen now. 91 farming and 88 RC is pretty steep just to unlock a mine. So if you don't have this, don't worry, it is still possible to do this method in the regular mine. Of course, I'm a sweaty nerd and have access to this mine, so this is where I'll be mining today. Getting here is really easy. You can teleport to Falador and run down here. Or more commonly, just use the skills necklace to get to the mining guild. This is my gear setup for today. The only thing that really stands out here is the Varrock Armor 4. This armor can basically let you double your ore sometimes. When you're mining, you have a chance to mine 2 ores at once, and it does work here. So if you have this plate body, this will greatly increase your GP per hour. The other thing that stands out is the Expert Mining Gloves. These gloves will basically give you a 25% chance to not deplete the ore when you're mining Amethyst, therefore making it much more AFK. To get these gloves, you have to gather minerals inside the mine here. So doing this before you actually have the gloves is not bad because you'll be getting those fragments along the way.
This is an editor's note. Before you start mining, you should probably check with Bologna to see if you have them turned on. And also, this is by no means an efficient way to get these gloves. If you want to get them faster, the best way to do it is through iron, but you will get these minerals from any ores in the mining guild. Thank you, and back to the video.
While you're mining down here, you have the option to craft the amethyst as you get them. This will just save you from clicking all the way to the bank, depositing your inventory, running back. But to do this smartly, you need to look at the price of amethyst items before you start crafting them. So to start my day, I bought 4 amethyst ores, and I price checked them. Unfortunately, the only profitable thing was amethyst arrow tips, and these have a 85 crafting requirement. The bolt tips have the lowest requirement of level 83, the javelin heads are level 87, and the dart tips are level 89. But with this information in hand, I decided to just make arrow tips all day. All 4 of them give the same amount of crafting experience, so that's not really an issue, but just remember to pick the one that's the most profitable at the time. Amethyst was very chill. I was very AFK today, but I still think I got a decent amount mined. There is one glaring mistake that I think I made. I don't know if it was smart to bring a charged glory in the gem bag. I'm still not certain on how gems roll. Do they roll in place of a mining roll, or are they an additional roll on top of it? I have no idea. But for my day of mining, this is the amount of gems that I got. It was about 40k worth, and it was really not worth it. I guess it saved me the inventory space or the banking time, but if this is replacing a roll on the ore drop table, it's definitely not worth it to do this. Amethyst was weird in the sense that sometimes I would click on one and it would instantly deplete. Then I would click on the next one and it would take over 10 minutes for it to deplete. The variety in AFK time is not ideal, but having an activity that has 10 minutes of AFK time is pretty insane. Throughout my day of mining, I gained 128,000 XP, making it 16.3k per hour. I also gained 31k crafting experience, making it about 4,000 per hour. I gained 7,830 arrow tips and 23 minerals. So if you remember the expert mining gloves, they cost a total of 240 fragments. That would mean if you did this 9 to 5, it would take you 10 days to get these gloves. My arrow tips ended up selling for 2.25 million GP, making this 281,000 GP per hour. So this method is very comparable in GP wise to Karambwans. When I made my video on Karambwans, they were quite expensive, but they have since fallen over 40 GP. That would now make this method better than Karambwans for GP, but still substantially worse for XP. One thing I also want to include in these videos now is the pet rate. I know some people love hunting pets, myself included, and I actually did the mining pet here. The base drop rate for the rock golem from amethyst crystals is 1 in 46,350. In my 8-hour session, I mined 522 amethyst crystals. And get ready for it because this is a very large number. If you were to do this 9 to 5, it would take you 88.7 full work days to get the mining pet here, or the equivalent of 710 hours. This is of course just using the numbers that I got. You could potentially mine more or even less per hour. This is by no means the best way to get the mining pet, but it is one of the most chill. I think most people will get this pet by accident at Motherlode Mine, or if you're hard farming it, you're more likely to get it from Volcanic Mine or the Gem Mine. This one gets the seal of approval from me. It's rare to find a good AFK mining activity, and I know 16,000 XP per hour is pretty rough, but for mining, it's actually pretty good. If you're working on 99 mining, a little bit of amethyst, a little bit of Motherlode Mine, you could probably even mix in some mining XP from when you go for 99 rune crafting, and you'll get there eventually. This is a very slow skill, so having a pretty good moneymaker, as well as a very AFK activity is much needed. Just from making this video, I now really want to make a video essay on why mining is actually one of the best skills in the game, and it's probably not for the reasons that you're thinking, because the XP rates for all activities are pretty abysmal. And that was AFKing Amethyst 9 to 5. I'll be fishing Karambwan's. This is one of my favorite AFK activities because of its consistent AFK time. First, we should talk about requirements. To unlock the ability to fish Karambwan's, you need to complete Taibo Wanai Trio. This quest has pretty low requirements, being only 15 agility, 30 cooking, and 5 fishing. Upon the completion of this, you're now able to catch Karambwan's, but they do still have a fishing level requirement behind them. To actually catch them, you will need 65 fishing. But on the other hand, this also gives you the access to catch the bait for Karambwan's. Karambwan's are interesting because I believe they're one of the only fishing activities that you can't just do. You can't buy the bait, so you have to catch it all yourself. And this in itself is an AFK activity. So, as a little bonus for episode 1, I've got 2 full work days to detail for you here. I started off with a nice 8-hour day of catching Karambwanji, and this is incredibly AFK. Over the course of 8 hours, I clicked on my game client less than 50 times. I was getting an insane 4.5k fishing XP per hour, and with this, I was catching 18,900 Karambwanji per hour with the help of Radha's Blessing 4. If you're very old school and haven't done your diaries, the Karen and Kebo's diary offers you Radha's Blessing. This has a passive fishing buff when you equip it. Each tier of diary gives you an additional 2% chance to catch an additional fish. This doesn't give you additional XP, but Karambwanji are an interesting case, because when you catch one fish, you're actually catching many more. The way this formula works is that if you take your fishing level, divide it by 5, and add 1. So if you're at 95 fishing or higher, you'll be catching 20 Karambwanji each time. And if you're at level 5, the lowest level you can catch these little fish at, you'll only be catching 2. If Radha's Blessing procs while you're fishing, that number will be doubled. So at 95 plus, you'll actually catch 40, and at level 5, you'll catch 4. During my day fishing here, my blessing procced 543 times, giving me an additional 10,860 fish. And trust me, this is a lot. You'll see how many Karambwanji I used in a day later in this video, so stay tuned for that. And with all that info out there, let me just give you my final numbers for my day of fishing Karambwanji. I fished for 8 hours, caught 151,420 Karambwanji, and I gained a total of 36,100 XP. I made no money today and didn't really gain a ton of XP, but I've set myself up for a lot of Karambwan fishing, and I won't need to return here for a very long time. And now, the juicy part. Fishing Karambwan's. The XP and GP here is actually pretty great for an AFK activity, but it is made much better by owning a fish barrel. This will double your AFK time by essentially giving you a second inventory to store fish every trip. So in my opinion, it is a must-have. I said earlier that I like this activity because of its consistent AFK time, but your AFK time does vary here, but it's actually entirely based on your fishing level. At 65 fishing, you have a 41% chance to successfully catch a Karambwan, and all the way at 99, you have a 62% chance. Since this fishing spot never moves, this is really the only variable you have here. At 99 fishing, my AFK time was roughly 4 minutes per trip, and the lower your fishing level goes, the longer your trip will be. This spot is unlike regular fishing. If you are low level fishing, if you fail to catch a Karambwan, it will actually steal your bait without offering you a catch. So the lower your fishing level is, the more Karambwanji you'll go through every day. To make this activity really worthwhile, you really need to unlock fairy rings. And if you have the 65 fishing requirement, I'm assuming you're into the game enough to have at least these unlocked. So let's start with getting to the fishing spot. There are multiple different ways to get here, but you'll always want to use a fairy ring. The best and obviously fastest way is to have direct teleports to a bank through the crafting or farming skill cape, but a ring of dueling works great as well for the Castle Wars bank. You'll also want a direct teleport to a fairy ring. A construction cape is ideal for free teleports, but a quest cape to teleport to the Legends Guild works as well, and so does a house tab. Using teleports that are not free will obviously cut into your profits, but it does work and you have other options if you don't have these specific skill capes. If you are not using the fairy ring in your POH, you will most likely need to change the ring every time you bank. This really adds up in time, so I highly recommend building one in your POH if you can. To bank this way, you want to set the fairy ring to the Chasm of Fire at DJR. This has a bank pretty close by, and when you return from this bank, you want to set the ring to DKP to teleport back to the Karambwans. You can make this easier by adding them to your favorites and simply clicking them on the travelogue to save you the headache of remembering the codes or typing them every time. So we know how to get there, we know how to catch them. Let's talk about how much money we're gonna make. Karambwan prices go up and down quite a bit. They normally peak when a new PvP update is announced because these fish act as good combo eating food. The downside to this is that a PvP update is only announced every 4 years. But lucky for us, they are quite expensive right now due to the release of Bounty Hunter. I was catching 798 Karambwans an hour at a price of 391 GP each. This was making me about 313k per hour and gaining me 41,000 fishing XP per hour. I don't want to get your hopes up, but when the prices settle, you're more likely to make closer to 250k per hour, but I spent 8 hours fishing, I caught 6,409 Karambwans, I used 10,259 Karambwanji, and just to note here, this is less than the amount of bonus I got from using Radha's Blessing, so I basically got a full day for free. I gained 328,100 XP, and I made 2.5 million GP. Karambwans are a great AFK activity for the workday, and I would highly recommend them for anyone who has the opportunity to play during the day. If you fish Karambwans 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, you would spend 40 hours fishing, catch 32,045 Karambwans, use 51,295 Karambwanji, gain 1.6 million fishing XP, and make 12.5 million GP at current prices. This one gets the seal of approval from me. Normally in one of these videos, I'd pick one activity and do it for 8 hours today, but today I'm switching it up. I'll be doing 8 different activities for 1 hour each. These are all skilling methods that I wanted to showcase, but I didn't think they could really make a standalone video. So for this one, I'll be showing you the methods, explaining the rates, and giving you a recommendation on each one. So let's get started. First, let's talk about a classic, making cannonballs. And yes, I am using the regular mold instead of the double mold, but don't worry, I'll be showing you the double mold at the end of this video. When we do any smithing activity, we need to talk about the choice of the furnace. This might seem so insignificant, but when we do something hundreds, if not thousands of times, the smallest amount of time save per inventory can really add up over time. The closest furnace to any bank in the game is actually in Shiloh Village. This furnace is only 10 tiles, or about 3 seconds away from the bank, but this one requires the elite Karambwanji diary, so I won't be using it for this video. Instead, I'll be using Edgeville, so everybody can get an accurate rate. This activity used to be so common for alts, but cannonballs has really been outclassed in recent years. But they are very AFK and have really low requirements, being only 35 smithing and partial completion of the dwarf cannon, so I could see why some people are still doing it. Using a regular cannonball mold, you can AFK for about 2.5 minutes per inventory, so that is very nice. But over the course of 1 hour, I gained 14.2k XP and made 2,212 cannonballs. This is a profit of 151k for the hour, and if we did it for the entire day, we would gain 113.6k smithing XP and make 1.2 million GP. This one's alright. I think it really depends on why you're doing it, but I personally wouldn't recommend this one unless you really need that extra AFK time and you don't have the ability to get the double mold. Next, while we're still in Edgeville, I'll be making Dragonstone bracelets. This is a skilling method that has multiple tiers, since almost every piece of gold jewelry is somewhat profitable. For this video specifically, I'll be focusing on just bracelets, so the requirements will vary, but for this particular method, you'll need 74 crafting, as well as a decent amount of starting cash. In 1 hour, I made 1,183 bracelets, which cost me 13.3 mil in supplies, but they sold for 13.9 mil, meaning this was 600k profit per hour. And to be honest, this is actually closer to 500k after the GE tax, so you kind of need to be wary about that when doing a skilling method that has a large buy-in price. In my hour, I also gained 130k crafting XP, which is pretty damn good if you ask me. The only real downside to this one is the AFK time. It is very rough. It is not very long at all. It was maybe 25 seconds per inventory. Thankfully, I'm not really doing that much at work today. It's pretty chill, so I was able to do this one. If you are working, this really isn't one I can recommend just for the low AFK time. If you're doing this on a day off or on a weekend, this is a great one for getting some crafting levels, making money, and working towards 99 crafting. And to wrap this second one up, I can do some basic math to give you information in the form of a table. This table is just showing you your estimated profits, your estimated XP, and even your buy-in price for each tier of bracelet. This information is on a per hour basis, but I think all of them are viable for a variety of different levels. Hello, it's me. I'm sorry for pausing the video, but I realized I didn't say anywhere in this video that if you are doing a skilling method where you need to spend a lot of money before you start making money, you need to check the profit margin. This can be done really easily using a site like GE Tracker. Just look at the finished product price versus the input price. You could also just use the built-in plugin to RuneLite to look at the GE on the side, or use another site like CalcuSource. Just don't dump your bank before you know how much you're actually going to make. RuneScape has a live economy, so you always need to be wary of that. But one way to make sure you never lose money is by subscribing. It's free! Next, we'll be moving away from making money and looking at a pure XP getting method. This one is awesome for one reason. It's a true 25-minute AFK method. With the release of Desert Treasure 2, we got a new boss, the Duke. During this boss fight, you need to prep 2 potions to wake him up, but if we completely ignore the boss fight and just mine the salt, we can AFK for 25 minutes uninterrupted. Continuing on to our next activity without leaving the ice prison entirely, I'll be mining Ancient Essence right next to the Phantom Muspa entrance. This is another weird one. The only thing I can recommend is that if you decide to do this one, don't use a crystal pickaxe as it will consume your charges, making this almost negative GP per hour. These veins have a mining requirement of 75, and the amount of essence you'll get will scale based on your mining level. So at 75 to 77, you'll get 1 to 2 essence each time. At 78 to 89, you'll get 2 to 3, and at 90 to 99, you'll get 3 to 4 per each one mined. I do have 99 mining, so keep that in mind, but I mined 2,414 essence for a total profit of 64k this hour. I also gained a whopping 10.6k XP, which is very similar to the salt we just mined, but the difference is that this method is only decently AFK. The way the veins work here is that they move randomly, and I say that very loosely. They randomly move to a different vein every 60 to 90 seconds, but I timed my first 10 attempts here, and it was very consistently about 75 seconds. To be completely honest, this one sucks. I'd really only recommend this one if you're an Iron Man with some downtime who still needs to upgrade the imbued heart, and you don't want to kill Muspa for whatever reason. Staying in our mining gear, I'll be moving on to Dayalt Essence in Darkmire. This stuff is interesting because it's technically not worthwhile to mine essence for runecrafting, because it will take you longer to mine in runecraft instead of just runecrafting with the regular essence, but I'm fully trusting this Reddit post about Dayalt Essence. The basic math is that it will take you longer to get your desired RC XP, but instead of runecrafting 100% of the time, you'll be AFK mining for a portion of it, which results in less runs to the altar overall. So this method is bad for EHP, but good for AFK. In 1 hour, I gathered 4,626 shards, which convert 1-to-1 with essence, and to be honest, I'm a bit of a donkey and I didn't take a screenshot of the experience gained, but this will let me explain how mining it works, so I guess it's okay. When you mine Dayalt, you'll get 2 to 3 shards per successful action. So this will average out to about 2.5 shards per action, and if you were to mine the same amount of shards as I did, that would be 1,850 actions, meaning this is about 9.2k mining XP per hour. Your mining level does not affect the amount of shards mined, but you do need at least 60 mining to do this activity. And although the mining level doesn't affect the rate, the pickaxe does, so you'll definitely want to use a dragon pickaxe if you decide to do this activity to cut down your overall rune crafting time. This one is kind of up in the air. It's either good or bad depending on the type of playstyle you have. If you're like me and would prefer to do some more AFK mining than active rune crafting, it's pretty good. I'm really not a huge fan of rune crafting, but AFK mining is alright in my book. I'd probably do this one at least a little bit if I was doing 99 RC again. The next activity was actually recommended to me in the comments of a previous episode. So if you have anything you'd want to see in one of these videos, please let me know. I basically have a Google Doc and I just keep adding in almost everything I see in the comments. If it can't work as a standalone video, it'll probably show up in a video like this in the future. But the next one is casting Plank Make. Plank Make has been a known AFK method for a very long time, and it's pretty damn good for both profit and XP. For my hour, I decided to make mahogany planks, but I believe all tiers of logs are profitable outside of the regular planks. And obviously the amount of GP you'll make will go up and down based on what type of plank is in demand currently. I would guess for about 95% of the game's lifespan, mahogany planks have been the go-to, and I think it will continue this way for the foreseeable future. Using plank make costs less than running to the sawmill if you ignore the cost of runes. So technically just making planks at the sawmill is more profit per plank, but doing it that way won't grant you any magic XP and is nowhere near as AFK. So I'm gonna guess this will be your preferred method. Plank Make is a spell on the Lunar Spellbook that requires level 86 magic, as well as the completion of the Dream Mentor quest. When doing this, you should use any staff that gives you unlimited earth runes. In my AFK hour, I made 916 planks, so my buy-in cost was almost 1.5 mil, but the value of the planks was close to 2 mil. After GE tax, this makes this about 400k profit per hour for a very chill method that requires only like 5 clicks every minute and a half. I also gained 82.4k magic XP for the hour, so this is a very strong method to finish up those last couple magic levels and make you some pretty good money. If you were to cast Plank Make for an entire workday, you would need at least 12 million GP in starter cash, but you'd end the day with 3.2 million GP as profits, as well as gaining 660,000 magic XP. This is a very good one, and I'd highly recommend it for any workday. And while we're still here standing at the bank, I figured this would be a good video to throw in fletching longbows. Fletching longbows is a classic and very nostalgic thing for a lot of people, myself included. And unsurprisingly, it's actually a pretty good fletching method as well as a good moneymaker. All tiers of logs are profitable, which is kind of nuts, so you can do this at pretty much any fletching level, with the highest profit per log actually coming from U logs. I wanted to focus on getting XP instead of GP, so I decided to do my hour with magic logs, which require 85 fletching. I am sorry that this screenshot is a little bit wonky, but the XP per hour was 163.6k. I just kind of took the screenshot like a minute after the hour ended, so it made it look kind of weird. In that hour, I cut 1,788 magic longbows, costing me about 1.8 million GP in magic logs, but the profit came out to be a whopping 40k. And after GE tax, it was pretty close to barely breaking even. So at this point in time, I really can't recommend magic logs. But if we look at other tiers of logs, similar to how we looked at bracelets, there are a lot of good options. It's just picking and choosing what's more important to you at the current time. Is it GP? Is it XP? Or maybe it's the buy-in price. The AFK time for this activity is the exact same regardless of what tier of log you choose, and it is a beautiful 1 minute and 40 seconds per inventory, so that is another plus for this one. And honestly, this is another one that I would recommend to anyone who wants some fletching XP without losing a ton of money. And finally, we return to cannonballs. This time I'll actually be using the Prifddinas furnace, which is slightly closer than Edgeville, but I'll also be using the double cannonball mold. Cannonballs are even better with the double mold, and are still quite AFK with really low requirements, again being only 35 smithing. This time you'll need completion of Sleeping Giants for the double mold, as well as partial completion of the Dwarf Cannon to obviously make the cannonballs. You'd expect this to be exactly double what a single mold can offer, but AFK activities are fickle. If you're a little too AFK, you can lose some XP, and it is what it is. In my hour of double cannonball making, I made 4,248 cannonballs and gained 27.2k XP. This one cost me 437k in steel bars, leaving me with a profit of 288k for the hour. This activity would make you 2.3 mil for a full day of AFK, which is pretty damn good even in 2023, as well as gaining 217k smithing XP, which again is pretty damn good for an AFK method. The AFK time when using a double mold gets cut in half from the regular mold because, well, obviously you're using twice as many bars per action, so the AFK time was roughly 1 minute and 15 seconds per inventory. And those were the 8 AFK activities I decided to do today. Today we got an update that I was waiting for, mainly because it gives me more content to make. Today we got Forestry Part 2. With this update, we get 2 more things that make woodcutting and fire making a bit more AFK. Two-handed axes, which I should be testing in the next episode, but also bonfires. Okay, they're called Forester Campfires in old school, but come on, we're all gonna call them bonfires anyway. The only important info I think I need for this activity is that I need to find a bank where I can 1. Light a fire, and 2. Have that fire be close to the bank booth. This is so I don't have to run around to the fire and waste time, and therefore XP as well while banking and running between the fire. So I think the perfect bank for me is the Crafting Guild bank, since I can stand directly next to the bank chest and the fire. If you don't have access to the Crafting Guild bank for whatever reason, you could use the Grand Exchange. It's pretty similar. Today I'll be testing 8 different tiers of logs from oak all the way to redwood for 1 hour each. This will give us the XP rates for a lot of logs in the game, but since we're also spending a fair bit of money today, I'll also track the GP spent and the GP per XP. So let's get started. Fun day. First, let's talk about the most important thing. How long does it take to burn an inventory of logs? Well, it's about 1 minute and 20 seconds, so it's pretty close to cooking. This makes it a very viable AFK training option, as even the banking is the exact same as cooking. This requires very minimal clicks. The whole process is just click bank, click log, hit the escape key, click fire, hit spacebar. That's it. That's the whole process. In this section, my XP trackers might seem a bit off. There might be a small variation in the amount stated compared to the one you see. This is because I'm wearing the Pyromancer outfit, which gives me an additional 2.5% XP. But the numbers I'll be using are the base XP rates that you can expect without the outfit. Log-wise, in 1 hour, I was burning 1,415 logs, and I averaged out this number based on the variation I had between different logs and how AFK I was. This number, again, is very similar to how many fish you can cook per hour, so it is a very similar training method. But finally, let's talk about all the funny numbers, including the GP per XP and the total cost. The first tier of log I tried was oak logs. These have a level 15 requirement and cost 52 GP per log. I wanted to try this first few tiers to see if it was really viable to do this instead of doing fire making lines so you could get to Wintertod, but for each oak log you get 20 XP, so this is roughly 2.5 gold per XP. The XP was pretty slow, being only 29k per hour, and the total cost was 73.5k. If you're doing oak logs, I would really recommend you just do fire making lines. You'll get to willow logs much faster. But speaking of willow logs, they were the second tier of log that I tried. These have a level 30 requirement and cost 32 GP per log. These are actually cheaper than oak logs, mainly because they're so heavily botted and there's just so many in the game. But the XP per log is 30, which makes this 1.04 GP per XP. The XP per hour was a big jump up to 43k, and the cost per hour was 45.2k. So going up just one tier of logs made this significantly better. The third tier that I used was teak logs. These have a level requirement of 35, and they cost 165 GP per log. I wanted to try these ones because I know a lot of people get them from the Kingdom of Miscellanea, and maybe some people are looking for some use for them outside of construction. For teak logs, you get 35 XP per log, which makes them 4.64 GP per XP. The XP per hour was 50.2k, which again goes up, but is still not great. You would be better off just doing fire making lines with willow logs. The cost per hour for this was 233.4k, so again, this is probably a cost you don't want to incur. The next tier I tried was maple logs. These have a level requirement of 45 and cost only 13 coins per log. If you've ever done your kingdom, you know you have a ton of these just lying around, and a lot of people actually use these to do fire making lines to 99 because they are so cheap. Each one of these logs will give you 45 XP, meaning that the GP per XP is the most cost effective of any other log in the game, being 0.28 GP per XP. The XP per hour was 64.3k, and the cost was only 18.3k. I could see these having some use. They're, again, just kind of like basic low-level logs, but if you are looking for some AFK content and you want to level your fire making, it's not terrible. It's not incredibly fast, but it's okay. Next, I wanted to try mahogany logs. These are also the same. I figure a lot of people have these from Kingdom. In reality, you should probably turn these into planks if you have them, or just sell them on the GE. But the level requirement for these are level 50. They cost 418 GP per log, and the XP per log is 52.5. This makes the GP per XP 7.9. This is quite expensive for a skill that you can get a ton of XP now for free. The XP per hour was 74.2k, which again is pretty good, but the cost per hour was 591.4k. These ones are definitely not worth doing, and they are way more valuable put towards something like construction. The next tier of logs brings us back to just standard woodcutting logs. I'll be trying out U logs. The level requirement for this is level 60. The cost per log is 312 GP. For each log, you'll get 67.5 XP, making the GP per XP 4.6, so almost half of our previous tier of log. And it gives us more XP, being 95.5k per hour. U-logs are also cheaper, costing 441.4k per hour. This is a big spend, but if you are someone who has done a ton of mole, maybe you want to use up your U-logs here. But again, just like mahogany logs are better used for construction, U-logs are probably better used for fletching. The second last log I used was the magic logs. These have a level requirement of 75 and cost 1,158 per log. For each log, you'll get 101.2 XP, making the GP per XP 11.4. These are the most expensive logs that you can use, and the XP per hour is not even that great. It's 143.1k. For the cost associated with it and the XP, you are better off just doing Wintertop. The cost comes out to 1.6 million GP per hour, and it is definitely not worth using these here. These again are better just used for fletching. And the last tier of logs that I tried were redwood logs. These have a level 90 requirement and cost 505 GP per log. For each log, you'll get 116.6 XP, making the GP per XP 4.3. This makes them the fourth most cost-effective log to use outside of the two lower tier ones being oak and willow, and of course the maple logs. With them being so affordable, the XP per hour is actually the best in the game, being 164.9k. And just because the GP per XP is so good, it doesn't mean they aren't costly up front, because the cost per hour is 714.5k. So the big question now is, should you do bonfires? No. Well, actually, maybe. If you need something AFK to do while working towards 85 for the diary and want to AFK a few levels, this could be viable, but only really if you use something like maple logs. But if you're someone who's just trying to get 50 firemaking to unlock Wintertod, you're better off just doing firemaking lines for the short amount of time it will take. I can see this having some very small use cases of letting people who are going for 200 mil XP get a little bit of AFK time. But honestly, Wintertod is just better XP than Redwood Bonfires, and also Redwood firemaking lines is significantly more XP per hour as well. The only thing Bonfires really have going for them is the AFK time. So this isn't to say you shouldn't do them, but just be wary that you could make money doing Wintertod or get faster XP somewhere else. In this episode, we'll be doing a lot of fishing to make a little bit of money. In this one, we'll be fishing Sacred Eels and Infernal Eels. Both of these have different requirements and different rewards, so let's get started with Sacred Eels. These are located in the beautiful and luscious town of Zul'Andra. You can catch these basically right next to the boat you take to Zul'ra. To catch these eels, you'll need partial completion of Regicide. You just need to get to the point where you can get to this area, and then you need to talk to the High Priestess before you're actually able to catch them. On top of that, you'll need 87 fishing and at least 72 cooking to catch these eels. For catching these, there is no banking. You catch them, and I guess technically cook them on the spot. Today I'll be wearing full anglers, and that's it. I'll be bringing my fishing rod as well as some regular fishing bait and a knife. You can use the equipable fishing rod from Aerial Fishing here, but I spilled oil all over mine, so I'll be only using that for the second half of this video. You can also use Rada's Blessing here to increase your GP a bit, but I didn't remember that before I did my day, and not using it I think gives a more realistic rate for everyone. If you're wondering why people catch these eels, it's for Zul'Ra scales that can be extracted from them. And this process has some interesting mechanics based on your cooking level. Each eel that you cut up will give you 100 cooking XP, plus an additional 3 XP per scale you get from it. And the amount of scales you get from it will scale based on your cooking level. Instead of listing all these ranges, I'll just show you them on the screen, and this will require a bit of math for our final numbers, but don't worry, I'll do it for you at the end, so you have an accurate GP and XP rate estimate at the end of this section. As with most fish, your catch rate for these eels will scale based on your fishing level. But lucky or unlucky for us, the success rate is pretty low regardless of what your level is. This is good in our case because 1, it makes it more AFK, and 2, it makes the XP rate not vary dramatically between level 87 and 99. At level 87, your success rate is about 20%, and at 99, it jumps all the way up to 24%. So if you are level 87 fishing, you should only expect to get about 4% less XP than I am. But in 8 hours of fishing these eels, I caught 1,673. This got me 180,000 fishing XP for the day, or about 22.5 per hour. You do also get cooking here, but I'm a bit of a nerd and I have 200 mil cooking XP, so I couldn't track my XP, but we can do some math to see how much cooking XP you should get on average for the cooking level ranges we spoke about before. If your cooking level is 72 to 79, you can expect 116 cooking XP per eel on average. That's 194,000 XP for the day, or 24k per hour. At 80 to 87, you can expect 120 cooking XP per eel, or 200k XP for the day, or about 25k per hour. At 88 to 95, you can expect 124 cooking XP per eel, and that's 207k or 25.8k per hour. And at 95 cooking or above, you can expect 128 cooking XP per eel on average, and that's 214k XP for the day, or about 26.7k XP per hour. And that's a bunch of math, so let's just talk about something more simple. Let's talk about the AFK times. My AFK times were about 1 to 3 minutes, but this varied a lot and it was not super consistent. You can AFK a little bit more by letting the eels automatically dissect themselves, but during my day, I manually cut all my eels as it's fairly quick to cut them as you move between spots. My day of sacred eels got me 11,718 Zulrah scales, which is almost perfectly average for my cooking level, being 0.004 above 7 scales per eel. This netted me 1.4 million GP, but just like that cooking XP, this GP will also scale based on your cooking level. And normally when we do activities that make GP, we calculate our supply cost into it, but the use of standard fishing bait here is 1-to-1, so every bait you use, you'll catch 1 eel, and in my day, I spent less than 5k GP in bait, so it doesn't really affect the price at all. GP wise, if your cooking level is 72 to 79, you can expect about 6,692 scales per day, or 836 per hour. At 80 to 87, you can expect 8,365 scales per day, or 1,045 per hour. At 88 to 95, you can expect 10,038 scales per day, or 1,254 per hour. And at 95 or above, you can expect to receive the same amount of scales as I did. This is a great activity for making some money, but the price of scales go up and down a lot depending on if the hot content requires a serpentine visage or a blowpipe. Right now we have Desert Treasure 2 bosses, and none of these really require either. You do technically use the blowpipe at the Leviathan, but it's not actually best in slot, so right now these scales are pretty low. But doing this for a long period of time is not a bad idea to stockpile these and sell when they're high. A lot of people fish here for GP, but they also fish here for clues. Depending on your fishing level, clues here are roughly 1 in 500, meaning you should get about 3 per day. I had no clues in my bank at the start of the day, and I ended up with a medium and a hard clue. So not bad, I can't complain. Another reason people fish here is for the pet chance. The pet rate here is pretty good. I got my first fishing pet here, and I got 3 more later on at Karambwanji, so maybe that says something, but the base rate for the pet here is 1 in 99,000. This means it would take you 57.87 full work days, or 463 hours to get the pet here. And if you're pet hunting here while having 95 cooking or above, you would roughly make 81 million GP grinding out this pet. And my god, was that a lot of numbers. It's time for me to take a small break and then jump into Infernal Eels tomorrow. It is time for another fun day of working and catching some eels. Infernal eels can be found in Moral Wreck, just east of the Inferno entrance. Today I'll be using an almost identical setup that I used at Sacred Eels, and I just think it's fair to not use Rada's Blessing here because I forgot about it for Sacred Eels. So again, you could get a little bit more than I'm getting today. The only difference in my setup today is that for Infernal Eels, you actually need a hammer to dissect them instead of a knife. You also need to wear ice gloves here, and mine might look a little bit weird compared to what you have or what you remember ice gloves looking like, but this is just the smithing gauntlets you get from Giant's Foundry since I put my ice gloves in them. These eels work very similarly to sacred eels, but thank God I do not have to do more eel math for this section. To catch these eels, the requirements are pretty simple. These eels have a bit higher requirements in some sense, but also a set of lower requirements. To catch these eels, you need completion of the fight caves. You need to show your fire cape to the city guard to gain access to this portion. It's actually a pretty common misconception that you need to sacrifice your fire cape to get access to this area, since it's where the Inferno is, but that's just not true. You only have to sacrifice your fire cape to jump into the Inferno, not to access the inner city. Outside of that, you'll need 80 fishing, and also there is no cooking requirement for these eels. But the downside is you won't get any cooking XP here. And although these eels don't require cooking math like they did for sacred eels, they do kind of work similarly. When dissecting infernal eels, you're basically rolling a drop table. Each one you dissect, there's a 1 in 16 chance you receive an onyx bolt tip and a 1 in 12 chance of receiving a lava shard. You'll also roll the chance to get Tokkul, but this one is almost guaranteed, being a 1 in 1.1. On average, per eel you should expect to get 0.25 lava shards and 0.0625 onyx bolts, as well as 14 Tokkul. Again, similar to most fish, your catch rate will scale based on your fishing level. And again, lucky or unlucky for us, the success rate is pretty low regardless of what level you are. This is good in our case because, again, 1, it makes it more AFK, and 2, makes the XP rate not vary a dramatic amount between level 87 and 99. At level 80, your success rate is about 31%, and at 99, it jumps all the way to 36. So if you're doing this yourself and you're level 80 fishing, you should expect to get about 5% less XP than I'm getting. In 8 hours of fishing these eels, I caught 2,496 infernal eels. This got me 243,000 fishing XP, a substantial jump up from sacred eels, and this comes out to be about 30.4k XP per hour. The AFK time here is very similar to sacred eels. It's about 1 to 3 minutes per spot, and again, you can make this a little bit longer by AFKing the dissection part. I did actively cut my eels both days, so if you decide to AFK this part, your XP rate will drop significantly to what you've seen in this video. In these 8 hours, I also got 35,571 Tokkul, 827 lava shards, and 135 onyx bolt tips. Lava shards and onyx bolts are pretty easy. You'll get a direct number of the GP you'll get, but Tokkul is a little bit more interesting. Tokkul can be used to buy items within the Tizar shops. You can use it here to buy items which can then be sold on the GE, technically giving it a GP value. This number can go up and down quite a bit, but right now you can get 6 GP per Tokkul by buying obsidian plate legs, and this number goes up to 7 GP per Tokkul if you wear Karambwanji Gloves 1, which are obtained from the Easy Karambwanji Diary. And with this knowledge, per day I technically made an extra 250k GP for the day. So with my onyx bolts giving me 1.1 mil, my lava shards giving me a measly 42k, and my Tokkul giving me 250k, I technically made 1.35 mil for the day. But GP is not the only reason people catch these eels. Just like sacred eels, these ones also drop clue scrolls, but at a much higher rate, being about 1 in 917. I did the 2 clue scrolls I got yesterday, and with a bank free of clue scrolls, today I only got 1 easy clue. People also fish here for the pet chance. The pet is much more rare here, being a drop rate of 1 in 160,000, meaning that this pet would take you 64.1 full working days, or 512 hours. This would make you roughly 86.4 mil while going after that pet at a rate of 160,000 GP per hour. And that was AFKing Eels 9 to 5. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider liking it. By liking the video, you're more likely to see a video from me in the future. This is surprisingly more effective than subscribing, but you should do that too. I'm sorry it took so long to get a video out. I am addicted to Vardorvis. Thank you so much to my YouTube channel member Snacks for your continued support. In the next episode of AFKing 9 to 5, I'm going to be doing a T-Bow rebuild classic. A little bit of PVM for you guys. If you want to see some more AFK content, you should see it on the screen now, but I've got nothing left to say, so I'll see you in the next one.